He was the founder and leader of the powerful Zetas drug cartel, considered to be one of the two most powerful drug gangs in the country. It's notorious for its extreme violence and was one of the first gangs to publicly display the beheaded bodies of its rivals. Heriberto Lazcano was known as the executioner for his brutality. He was suspected of hundreds of killings.
An exclusive look into a notorious gang, an elite group comprised of ex-Mexican military members who have evolved into one of the deadliest forces working the U.S.-Mexico border. They are Los Zetas.
Their boss, the head of the Gulf Cartel, Osiel Cárdenas Guillén.
Mexico has had some famous gangsters in its history, especially those involved in selling illegal drugs. These gangsters became well known because they were very powerful, often fought with other gangs, and broke the law in big ways. We're going to talk about 5 of these gangsters. Each one has a unique story that shows a part of Mexico's history with drug selling and gangs. Their lives were full of action, danger, and big decisions that had a huge impact on their country. Mexico has long been a significant producer of opium and marijuana. In the 1970s and 1980s, small-scale Mexican traffickers were supplanted by more organized groups as the demand for narcotics, particularly in the United States, began to soar. The first major consolidation of drug traffickers into a cartel structure was the Guadalajara Cartel, formed in the late 1970s. It was Mexico's first major drug trafficking network, controlling most of the narcotics flowing into the United States from Mexico. The 1989 arrest of Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, the leader of the Guadalajara Cartel, led to the fragmentation of the organization into several factions. These factions became the basis for many of the cartels that would dominate Mexican drug trafficking in the years to come, such as the Sinaloa, Tijuana, and Juarez cartels. Throughout the 1990s, these cartels expanded their operations, not only in terms of geographic coverage, but also in the diversity of their criminal activities, including kidnapping, human trafficking, and extortion. In 2006, then-President Felipe Calderón launched a military-led initiative to combat drug trafficking and organized crime. This move dramatically escalated violence across the country, as cartels fought back against military and police forces as well as against each other. The crackdown led to the killing or capture of several key cartel leaders, which in turn led to further fragmentation of the cartels into smaller, often more violent groups. This period saw the rise of the Zetas, a cartel known for its particularly brutal tactics. Originally formed by defectors from the Mexican Special Forces, the capture of several high-profile cartel leaders, such as Joaquin El Chapo Guzman of the Sinaloa Cartel, has not significantly diminished drug trafficking in Mexico. Instead, it has led to the rise of new groups and alliances, as well as a continued cycle of violence. Modern cartels have diversified their criminal portfolios to include a wider range of activities, such as illegal mining, logging, and extortion. Beyond traditional drug trafficking, the presence and actions of cartels have profound impacts on Mexican society, from displacement and human rights abuses to influencing local and national politics.
He was the founder and leader of the powerful Zetas drug cartel, considered to be one of the two most powerful drug gangs in the country. It's notorious for its extreme violence and was one of the first gangs to publicly display the beheaded bodies of its rivals. Heriberto Lazcano was known as the executioner for his brutality. He was suspected of hundreds of killings. The US had offered a $5 million reward for information leading to his arrest. Mexico had offered $2.3 million.
The Mexican Navy claims to have killed the top Los Zetas drug cartel leader Heriberto Lazcano, along with 2 other gang members, in a shootout 80 miles from the Texan border in Mexico. Lazcano, alias the Executioner, is the founder of the notorious gang which had been implicated in a string of mass killings and kidnappings. Lazcano's death follows long-standing rivalry with his deputy Miguel Trevino, alias Z40, which...
Photographs said to show the body of a notorious drugs gang leader are being shown on Mexican television. Heriberto Lazcano, the head of the Zetas cartel, is known as the Executioner for his extreme violence. Government leaders say he was killed in a military operation.
Heriberto Lazcano, known as El Lazca, was indeed a formidable figure in the realm of organized crime, particularly as the leader of Los Zetas, which is known for its brutal and diverse criminal activities. Under Lazcano's leadership, Los Zetas, originally formed by ex-military personnel, maintained a semblance of military structure and discipline, which set it apart from other criminal organizations in Mexico. This military-like structure facilitated Los Zetas' expansion across Mexico and the diversification of their criminal portfolio to include not just drug trafficking, but also kidnapping, human trafficking, and extortion, among others. Lazcano's leadership was characterized by a blend of respect and fear, not just among his followers, but also within the broader context of Mexican organized crime. This respect was rooted in the organization's military origins and was evident in practices such as recovering the bodies of fallen comrades, caring for their families, and breaking out arrested members from prison. These actions demonstrated a level of loyalty and camaraderie more commonly associated with military units than with criminal gangs. Following Lazcano's death, Los Zetas faced a leadership vacuum and internal strife, particularly with the rise of Miguel Trevino, known for his focus on drug trafficking and a more confrontational approach. Unlike Lazcano, Trevino lacked the military background and, consequently, the same level of respect among the rank and file of Los Zetas. This shift in leadership style and the internal conflicts it spurred, along with intense pressure from law enforcement, have led to a decentralization and fragmentation within the organization. The cohesion and centralized command structure that once characterized Los Zetas under Lazcano have given way to a more decentralized network of independent cells operating under the Los Zetas brand, but without a unified command. This transformation has implications for the future of Los Zetas and organized crime in Mexico more broadly. The lack of a strong, centralized leadership and the shift towards a decentralized network of criminal cells can lead to increased violence and instability as these cells vie for power, territory, and influence. This shift may also change the dynamics of competition and cooperation among different criminal organizations in Mexico, with potential alliances forming and dissolving as the balance of power shifts in the absence of strong leaders like Lazcano. In conclusion, Heriberto Lazcano's leadership of Los Zetas marked a significant period in the history of Mexican organized crime, characterized by military discipline, expansion, and brutality. His death has led to significant changes within Los Zetas, with long-term implications for the organization and the landscape of organized crime in Mexico. Vicente Carrillo Fuentes, also known as El Viceroy, was a significant figure in the Mexican drug trafficking scene, having inherited the leadership of the Juarez Cartel after his brother's death in 1997. At the time, the Juarez Cartel was considered the most powerful drug trafficking organization in Mexico. Carrillo Fuentes struggled to maintain control over the cartel's territory amidst conflicts with rival organizations and internal disputes. Unlike his brother, who managed to create a federative structure among different cartels, Carrillo Fuentes was unable to do so, leading to constant territorial disputes, especially with the Sinaloa Cartel. Born in Navolato, Sinaloa, Carrillo Fuentes took over the cartel with Jose Esparragoza, alias El Azul, following his brother Armando Carrillo Fuentes' death during plastic surgery. Under his leadership, the cartel was responsible for transporting tons of from Colombia through Mexico to the United States. The Juarez cartel's dominance in the drug trade was initially due to its connections with federal authorities, which offered protection. However, the environment became much more violent over time. The alliance between the Juarez and Sinaloa cartels ended in 2004, leading to a violent conflict that made Ciudad Juarez one of the most dangerous cities in the world. Carrillo Fuentes' attempts to combat the Sinaloa cartel involved strengthening the Juarez cartel's armed wing, La Linea, and collaborating with the US-based gang Barrio Azteca. Despite these efforts, the Sinaloa cartel, led by Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, eventually overpowered the Juarez cartel. Carrillo Fuentes was captured in 2014 and sentenced to 28 years in prison. He was charged with numerous crimes, including drug trafficking, money laundering, and murder. Known for his violent methods, Carrillo Fuentes was reported to have personally killed some of his enemies and was the first to use car bombs in attacks against the police. The Juarez cartel's influence waned significantly with the deaths and arrests of the Carrillo Fuentes brothers, Those small cells continue to operate in Chihuahua and engage in conflicts with the Sinaloa Cartel. Despite a request for extradition by U.S. authorities, Carrillo Fuentes remains imprisoned in Mexico. Juan José Esparragoza Moreno, better known as El Azul, was a key figure in the Mexican drug trafficking world and a leading member of the Sinaloa Cartel. His nickname, El Azul, the Blue, is said to have derived from his dark complexion, which was so deep that it appeared almost blue. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Esparragoza Moreno was known for his low-profile approach to the drug trafficking business, preferring to operate in the shadows rather than seeking public attention. Esparragoza Moreno's criminal career spans several decades, during which he was involved in various facets of the drug trade, from production and transportation to distribution. He was reputed for his strategic acumen and his ability to broker peace among conflicting cartel factions, earning him a reputation as a skilled negotiator within the criminal underworld. One of the notable aspects of Esparragoza Moreno's career was his ability to maintain relationships with high-ranking officials, including governors, police chiefs, and military officers, which allowed him to operate with a significant degree of impunity. His connections extended beyond the drug world, influencing political and law enforcement spheres, which was a testament to his deep entrenchment within the corrupt elements of the state. Esparragoza Moreno was also known for his involvement in significant cartel alliances and conflicts. For instance, he played a role in the Sinaloa Cartel's efforts to control the Golden Triangle, a key drug-producing area in Mexico, and to combat rival groups such as Los Zetas. The Sinaloa Cartel's strategy involved leveraging their economic power and corrupt government connections to establish dominance over drug trafficking routes and territories. Despite his involvement in violent and illegal activities, Esparragoza Moreno was considered by some to possess a certain level of honor and respect for certain codes of conduct within the criminal world. He was known for his personal charm, sense of humor, and preference for resolving disputes without unnecessary violence, although he did not hesitate to use force when it served his interests. Esparragoza Moreno's ability to remain a significant figure in the drug trade for so long, avoiding high-profile captures and maintaining a relatively low public profile, was attributed to his cautious approach and strategic alliances. His death, rumored on several occasions, was often met with skepticism, as he had previously been reported dead only to resurface. Overall, Juan José Esparragoza Moreno's legacy in the world of drug trafficking is marked by his strategic mind, ability to navigate complex criminal and political landscapes, and his preference for operating behind the scenes. Enedina Arellano Felix, often referred to as La Narcomami, the Narcomam, assumed control of the Tijuana cartel following the capture of her son, Fernando Sanchez Arellano, also known as El Ingeniero, on June 23, 2014. Enedina is the sister of the original leaders of the organization, the Arellano Felix brothers, and her ascent to leadership marked a significant change in the cartel's operations. Before taking over the cartel, Enedina and her former husband were involved in several businesses, including a chain of pharmacies and a real estate company, which were used to launder the cartel's money. Under her oversight, the Tijuana cartel transitioned from an extremely violent gang to a more business-like operation, favoring alliances with other organizations, including Colombian drug traffickers, over violence. The Tijuana cartel, also known as the Arellano Felix organization, was a dominant force in drug trafficking from Tijuana to California for nearly 2 decades, also profiting from other criminal activities like contraband and human trafficking in the region. The cartel faced significant challenges between 2002 and 2008 as its leaders were captured or killed, leading to a power vacuum and internal divisions. This resulted in a violent turf war in Tijuana, which began to subside around 2010 amid rumors that Fernando Sanchez Arellano had reached an agreement with the Sinaloa Cartel. Despite her lower profile compared to other cartel leaders, Enedina has been on the U.S. Department of Treasury's list of drug traffickers since 2002. Her leadership is characterized by a reportedly less violent approach and a focus on financial operations, which could indicate a shift in the cartel's tactics. However, if the Sinaloa Cartel indeed controls the Arellano Felix clan's operations, the change in leadership might have a minimal impact on the organization's overall activities.
An exclusive look into a notorious gang, an elite group comprised of ex-Mexican military members who have evolved into one of the deadliest forces working the U.S.-Mexico border. They are Los Zetas.
And they admit causing terror in Mexico, but they're also busy on this side of the river as well.
Soldiers of terror. They admit they are Zetas. They're part of an organized group of mercenaries terrorizing people in Mexican border towns. These assassins tell stories, the way they kidnap, torture, mutilate, and conduct hits for the drug lords. Their boss, the head of the Gulf Cartel, Osiel Cárdenas Guillén.
Osiel Cárdenas Guillén is a significant figure in the history of organized crime in Mexico, particularly known for his leadership of the Gulf Cartel, one of the country's most powerful drug trafficking organizations. Born in 1967 in Matamoros, Tamaulipas, Cárdenas Guillén rose through the ranks to lead the Gulf Cartel following the arrest of its previous leaders. Under Cárdenas Guillén's leadership, the Gulf Cartel expanded its operations, not only in drug trafficking, but also in various forms of organized crime, including extortion, kidnapping, and human trafficking. His tenure was marked by the intensification of violence and corruption in Mexico, as the cartel fought both the Mexican government and rival criminal groups to maintain and expand its control. Cárdenas Guillén was known for his violent tactics and for maintaining a network of corruption within Mexican law enforcement and politics, which helped him evade capture for years. His notoriety increased following a 1999 incident where he directly confronted and threatened the agents and an FBI agent in Mexico, leading to his indictment by the United States. He was eventually arrested by the Mexican military in 2003 in Matamoros, Tamaulipas. His arrest was a significant victory for Mexican law enforcement and was part of a broader effort by both Mexico and the United States to combat drug trafficking and organized crime. After his arrest, Cárdenas Guillén was extradited to the United States in 2007, where he faced multiple charges related to drug trafficking, organized crime, and money laundering. In 2010, Osiel Cárdenas Guillén pleaded guilty to several charges in a U.S. court, including conspiracy to launder money, conspiracy to possess and distribute drugs, and conspiracy to commit assault and murder in aid of racketeering. He was subsequently sentenced to 25 years in prison and agreed to forfeit $50 million as part of his plea agreement. Cárdenas Guillén's imprisonment marked the end of an era for the Gulf Cartel, but the organization has continued to operate, albeit with changing alliances and leadership. His legacy includes the militarization of drug cartels in Mexico, as he was instrumental in recruiting former military personnel to form the cartel's armed wing, known as Los Zetas, which later splintered off into a separate and equally notorious criminal organization. The stories of these 5 gangsters show us how the selling of illegal drugs in Mexico has changed over time. These gangsters did some pretty bold and dangerous things, which affected a lot of people's lives in Mexico. Their stories help us understand the big problems Mexico faces with drug selling and gang violence. Even today, Mexico is working hard to solve these problems. By learning about these gangsters, we can see how important it is to make good choices and how big of an effect one person can have on the world around them.